Hey guys, it's Ollie. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So I am joined here with my corn snake Clementine to talk to you about 5 reptile items that you should not buy. These are going to be a list of things that are marketed towards reptiles, and as a beginner you're going to see a lot, specifically in pet stores, marketed towards animals that you should not use those items on. So some of these are a little self-explanatory, some of them are not. Also, yes, Clementine has a little piece of sex shed there. I'm going to see if she takes care of that with her next shed. She's looking a little dull, so it shouldn't be too long. So don't worry about that. She's okay. So item number 1 is heat rocks. If you have been in the reptile community for a while or even a little bit, you've probably heard of heat rocks. This is going to be one of the things we talk about the longest, mainly because we have to talk about why they are so harmful. So to explain why they're harmful, let's talk about how reptiles, like Clementine here, regulate their heat. So reptiles are normally thought of cold-blooded or ectothermic. To be specific, they are pokeotherms. I probably said that wrong, not gonna lie. This means that they are capable of controlling their internal temperature, but instead of using internal means to do so like birds or mammals, they do so by splitting their time between hot and cold areas of their environment. This is why it's so common for reptile enclosures to have a hot and a cool side so that they can regulate that temp. The ideal reptile body temperature relies heavily on the species as well as their metabolic health and their overall health. For example, a Eurymastix has a much different basking temperature than, say, a leopard gecko. And a snake that has just eaten a meal is much more likely to be somewhere a lot warmer rather than a snake with an empty stomach. In the wild, reptiles will get their heat from the sun, whether that means basking in it directly or laying on some hot pavement or some hot rocks after sundown to get that heat. So why does this tie into heat rocks, and why does that make heat rocks bad? You would think it's a great opportunity for them to get some of that heat that they so desperately need. So the problem is that heat rocks makes snakes and other reptiles think that they are still cold when in actuality they are burning themselves. Here's how. Heat rocks are designed to convert electrical energy into heat that radiates from the rock's surface. The heat that it creates is weak, inefficient, and won't even penetrate the reptile's skin. This means that when a reptile lays on the heat rock, the heat collects on the reptile's skin, and it is up to the bloodstream of the reptile to heat up the rest of the reptile before the skin starts to overheat, which is nearly impossible to do. For reptiles, body temperature dictates the metabolic rate. When they have a high body temperature, their heart beats more quickly, and vice versa. When they have a low temperature, their heart will beat more slowly. You probably see where this is going. Essentially, if the air is too cool, then their metabolism is a little bit sluggish, which means that circulating blood gets a little sluggish too. So since heat rocks only warm the belly of the reptile and not their whole body, and since the thermoreceptors that help the reptile sense their body temperature is primarily in the reptile's spine, the heat produced by the heat rock on the belly instead of the spine does not allow the metabolism to be fast enough. Therefore, it can't move to the rest of the body fast enough for the animal to sense that they are in fact getting burned on their belly. So why can't they seem to understand that they are getting burned? So they kind of sense heat differently than humans do, as I just kind of talked about. The thing about reptiles is when it is a sudden change in temperature, they can tell. However, if it's something like a heat rock that will slowly rise in heat, they aren't able to really notice that slow change. You can sort of think of it as leaving an air-conditioned house and going out into 90-degree Fahrenheit heat. It is a drastic difference, and you can tell. Whereas if it's already warm in your house and it slowly starts to warm out, maybe you're out all day, it's a lot harder to tell that it went all the way up to 90 versus the 60 degrees that you may have had in your house. So even when the reptile is getting burned from a heat rock, they cannot sense that, and they still think that they are too cold. Even though the reptile may be in pain, they are still unlikely to move from that spot, since heat is very important for reptiles. Reptiles did evolve to either get their heat directly from the sun's rays above them, or to stretch out on warm rocks or even pavement to collect their heat. Their bodies just aren't equipped for something like a heat rock that will gradually heat while the air around them remains cool. They need the ambient temperature, not just the direct heat. Short end of it, heat rocks are absolutely not safe for your reptile. They are extremely dangerous. They cause a lot of burns. They are not safe for your reptile. If you do have a heat rock, I highly recommend that you take it out immediately. The best thing you can do if you don't want to just like waste your money because you already bought the heat rock is just to cut the cord and use it as decoration. Number 2 on our list is calcium sand. You've probably heard more of calcium sand if you have lizards like bearded dragons or leopard geckos. So what is calcium sand? It's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's just sand that is made up of calcium carbonate. Now, safe loose substrates can be used in almost all reptiles, yes, including bearded dragons, if done correctly. But calcium sand is probably the most unsafe substrate you could use, and I recommend not using it at all, even in a mix. I don't think that it should be sold or made or used. It's not good. So obviously, it contains a lot of calcium. Here's the problem with that. Most lizards eat calcium. So the lizard will more than likely eat it, and it doesn't help that sand is just kind of naturally gooey and gluey and gross whenever it does get wet, which only increases the risk of impaction. Impaction is essentially when they get clogged up and can't poop, and it's really bad and can kill your reptile, especially if you don't notice that they're impacted soon enough, which a lot of people don't. Look how calm she's being. It's crazy. You're so calm today. So other than it just being a big impaction risk, it's also very dusty and can cause some respiratory issues with your lizard or snake as well. A lot of things can do that, but again, we're just talking about calcium sand. I'm going to keep my opinions of other substrates out of this for this video. So I was also reading up on the risk of calcium sand, and I did learn that it is also alkaline, which means that it can neutralize your lizard's stomach acid. And again, while regular sand is very controversial in the reptile community, calcium sand, I have a very hard stance that it is unnecessary, it's dangerous, there's literally no reason to have it. Just use regular sand if you want it that bad. Don't use calcium sand. Just there's literally no reason to use it. It's nothing but dangerous, and even if your lizard doesn't get impacted, why risk it? It's expensive, it's not good for your reptile, it causes a lot of risks and harm, and it's just kind of pointless. If you want to use sand, just get some plain play sand at like Lowe's or something and clean it really well and just use that. Also, the calcium in calcium sand literally has no purpose. There's not a reason other than to like entice your reptile to lick it. So again, it's pointless. I don't see reasoning for calcium sand at all. Like I said, it's just a harm. Some people will of course say that they've used it for years and have never had a problem. I personally just don't believe it's worth the risk in this case especially. And just in case I didn't say it enough and I haven't annoyed you thoroughly in this video, I'm gonna say it again. There is literally no need for calcium sand. If you want sand that bad, use play sand. I mean, at least the heat rocks, people thought they were doing something good and clever there, but calcium sand, I just don't get it. I don't understand. I could go on about calcium sand for a while, but I won't. So we're just going to go to number 3, which is reptile carpet. So let's talk about reptile carpet. Reptile carpet was actually recommended to me by a few vets. It's been recommended in groups a lot, and was really big, it seemed like, in the reptile community for a little bit, but it has since gone down in popularity due to some of these reasons. The main reason reptile carpet is frowned upon is that it's just really unsanitary. Something like reptile carpet just harbors a ton of bad bacteria. The felt-like surface of it, combined with the moisture of some aspects of enclosures, like under hides and water dishes, for example, just really makes a good environment for bacteria to grow. So, like, doesn't substrate, though, also carry bacteria? Obviously, yeah, it does. Anything's going to do that. However, substrate naturally contains more neutral and beneficial bacteria, so it's definitely not as bad, whereas reptile carpet harbors a ton of the bad bacteria, if that makes sense. I'm trying to explain it really simply so we don't get lost and I don't go on another rant. And also, substrate provides a place for the water to kind of drain into and disperse and neutralize, rather than just sitting on essentially felt and letting the water just soak there and stay there and become a bed of bacteria. There can still be problems even if you clean and sanitize and change out your reptile carpet all the time to keep it safe. Again, I don't really know why you would do that. It seems a little expensive, but if you want to do that, that takes care of the problem of bacteria. But that also brings us to our next problem, which is that teeth and claws, especially from lizards, get stuck on reptile carpet quite a bit. A lizard's claws have evolved mostly for gripping, climbing, and digging, and can be very, very prone to snagging fibers on things like reptile carpet, especially once the reptile carpet is slightly worn. Isn't that right? These snags can be super stressful for the lizard, and 9 times out of 10, the lizard will flail to try to get free, making the situation a lot worse. Sometimes they will even pull their claws out from the root, which obviously has a lot more problems that way. It's not just painful and frightening and stressful for your animal, but it also causes a very, very good spot for an infection to start. Teeth can get caught on reptile carpet as well. If you have a lizard, you've seen them eat. They're not graceful. So usually when a lizard lunges at an insect, they will pick up a little bit of whatever that insect is standing on, and this is no different with reptile carpet. With a loose soil-based substrate, the lizard can just pick up a few grains of the substrate and end up being fine usually, and end up being able to pass that pretty easily. However, with reptile carpet, obviously their teeth are just going to snag instead of picking anything up. Reptile carpet is a pretty strong material as well, and teeth of lizards are more likely to break than ripping the carpet. Broken teeth in reptiles don't seem to cause them a lot of pain. However, once again, that is a perfect spot for infection. The third reason reptile carpet is not good is that it simply does not allow the reptile to show its naturalistic behaviors. By giving them reptile carpet, you are taking away any chances of them being able to dig and get enrichment from digging. And I know that this seems like the lesser issue, which it is the lesser issue for reptile carpet. However, this can end up being like a lower quality of life for your animal to take away some of that enrichment. Being able to express these naturalistic behaviors, the animal is more likely to be a lot less stressed, and also has even been shown to have a longer life expectancy. This is true for all pets, not just reptiles, like the enrichment thing. Living in something that does not allow them to have that enrichment, even though you could have perfect UVB, perfect lighting, perfect heat, perfect humidity, overall does decrease the quality of life for your animal and is kind of cruel in my opinion. So maybe don't do that. That's the biggest reason I didn't get reptile carpet for Clementine here. She's a corn snake and they like to dig a lot, and she is no exception. So when my vet actually told me to get reptile carpet for her before I even knew the risks of bacteria, I heavily declined because she likes to dig, and why would I take that away from her? You know what I mean? Alright, so enough of me rambling about reptile carpet. Let's go on to our next topic, which is pellet food or otherwise dried food for reptiles. This one's a bit shorter, but I still feel like it's super, super important because as humans, living our own lives, having our own stress, we want to definitely look at ways to make our lives a lot easier, to make things shorter, and feeding something that is pre-made just saves a lot of time and energy, and I get that. However, it's not very good. It's not good quality. 9 times out of 10, you are losing nutrition. So let's get into a little bit of the details of why pellet food isn't the best. So this one I do feel like is important, even though it is a shorter topic, mostly because of the amount of these foods I've seen popping up lately. I've seen them skyrocket, and it's kind of unfortunate, actually. So pellet foods can be useful in the sense of emergency food. So I'll be talking mostly about bearded dragons. I don't have any other animals that pellet food is marketed towards, so I will be talking about bearded dragons because I know more about them. As far as I could see online, the same for most animals. I won't speak on turtles. I know turtle pellets are very popular. I have no idea. I don't know anything about those. So lizards usually get their nutrients from bugs they eat, as well as leafy greens and other vegetables that they eat. But the dried stuff just doesn't have those nutrients. And dried insects are basically just chitin, which is the shell, that is hard to digest, but also, again, doesn't have any of those nutrients, and you can't gut load already killed dried insects. So it just takes away a lot of that nutrition that your lizard should be getting from their food. Like, even live insects aren't nutritional enough unless you gut load them. You know what I mean? Now, when I say this, I do not mean like Repashy gel diets that are usually used for crested geckos. I'm not talking about those. I know that Reptilinks is also a pretty big brand that now does kind of ground up things. I know you can get them for snakes and stuff if you don't want to feed like rodents. I've heard of them. I don't know much about them. I've heard good things. I just personally don't have any experience with it. I've heard that Repashy gel diets are great with nutrition though, and I've heard that Bluey Buffet and Beardy Buffet are pretty good as well. I have some Beardy Buffet myself for emergency cases when I don't have her veggies like on hand. I still wouldn't use it to completely replace a diet, of course, but like I said, it's good to mix in or have as an emergency food or something like that. Alrighty, now on to our fifth and final topic, which is red nighttime bulbs. Again, gonna be kind of a quick one. So the idea behind red bulbs when they really first came about was that reptiles couldn't see the red light and therefore it wouldn't disrupt them at night. However, that is pretty accepted to be false now, and it's been shown that while reptiles do see things differently, they can still see color and light. So it just was not true. And the lights on disrupt them because it's sort of like if you were to sleep in a room with the light on, you might get some sleep, but will it be restful sleep? Probably not, at least if you do it every night. I've also heard that the red lights can harm their eyes. I do not know if that is true though. Essentially, instead, if you need to heat it at night, just consider maybe ceramic heat bulbs. It's a lot safer, a lot easier. The like ceramic heat emitters, that sort of thing. That's what I do. That's all that I have for you on that one. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have for you today. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you learned something from it, or at the very least found it entertaining. Give this video a like for the algorithm and comment down below if there are any others you would like me to cover. I might make a series of this, depends. We'll see where it goes. All of my links, including my Instagram, my art Instagram account, my Facebook group for this channel, and me and my wife's Etsy group will be in the link in the description down below. So go check those out if you are interested. And as always, subscribe if you are into this kind of content or really any animal content. I upload every single Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, but you can hit the bell if you don't want to remember that. And as always, we will see you guys next week. Bye.